The day my wealthy girlfriend's first love returned, the system and I both laughed. The 9-year-long story was finally complete. The system excitedly secured a $50 million bonus for me before leaving to resurrect my family in the real world. The reward was so generous that I found myself humming as I trimmed the excess stems from the flowers in the vase. I ignored the disgusted looks from my sister and my wife standing beside me. "If you don't apologize to Julian right now, I'll disown you." "Then go ahead and disown me." I was done with this sister who always sided with outsiders and this wife who treated me like a dog. I simply didn't care anymore. Isabella Croft's face tightened uncomfortably, a flicker of panic in her eyes. It was likely because in all our years growing up, I had never once refused her demands so directly. But soon enough, she was smugly showing off the makeup and beautiful dress her brother had sent her, even spinning around 3 times as if afraid I wouldn't get a clear look. I just found it amusing, so I decisively packed my bags and contacted a lawyer to draft divorce papers. I wanted nothing to do with this family anymore. Besides, our goals were aligned. We all wanted to be completely rid of each other. In New York's high society, I was known as the clinger, and everyone assumed the sterling heiress despised my constant presence. That is, until the day her phone screen was projected during a shareholders' meeting. Everyone saw that her wallpaper was a picture of me. My contact name was saved as "My Dearest Husband," and her photo album held over 10,000 candid pictures she had secretly taken of me. When I learned she had fallen for me at first sight but had feigned indifference for 9 years, repeatedly siding with her first love to crush my devotion, I decided to add fuel to the fire. I called my plastic surgeon. "I need you to reverse the procedures. I want my old face back." The woman on the other end sounded concerned. "But you just had your 8th procedure. We're worried about the risks of another surgery so soon." "It doesn't matter," I said. "I'm not afraid of the risks." The day I was leaving with my suitcase, I ran right into Chloe Sterling. "Where are you going?" she demanded. I kept my head down and remained silent. Chloe's first instinct was that I was still angry with her. After a moment's thought, she pulled out a watch she had won at an auction the previous night, a timepiece that was clearly worth a fortune. "This is for you," she said. "Please don't be angry anymore, okay?" Just then, my sister Isabella came in, her jaw dropping when she saw the watch. "Chloe, isn't that the watch you made a statement bid of $30 million for last night? I thought it was for Julian." Julian Croft himself then walked in, smiling as he looked at Chloe with a bashful expression. I said nothing. A conflicted look crossed Chloe's face, but she still held the watch out to Julian. She didn't even dare to look at me, afraid she would see the pain in my eyes. The truth was, I didn't care. Chloe's love for Julian was genuine. The gifts she sent him abroad each year were so numerous they could fill a room. In contrast, the gifts she gave her own husband were practically non-existent. The surgery was quick. Thanks to the general anesthesia, it felt like I had just taken a nap. Looking in the mirror, my nose and chin were covered in gauze, but I smiled, satisfied. My body, however, was growing weaker, and a sharp pain in my chest was getting worse. My incessant, day and night coughing began to worry my doctor. "Are you sick?" she asked. "Maybe I should take you to the hospital for some tests." I looked at Dr. Amelia Hayes, one of the few people in this world I considered a genuine friend. Instead of using sign language, I typed out a long message on my phone. "To be honest, I am sick. I'm begging you, when I die, please have my body cremated and scatter my ashes into the ocean. I hate this world, but I have no choice but to be here." Amelia was stunned, unable to process that the friend she hadn't seen in years was dying. She remembered when he first came to her for surgery at the age of 20. "All right," she finally said. "I promise." The next few days were blissful. I no longer had to wait on Chloe or overhear the staff badmouthing me. My health was deteriorating rapidly. I was sleeping constantly and had started coughing up blood. But I was still happy, because I knew I would be seeing my real family soon. Meanwhile, Julian would periodically send me suggestive photos via iMessage, ranging from kisses and embraces to clothes strewn across a hotel bed. "You know," he texted, "Chloe really wants to have my baby. She's gonna file for divorce any day now. Let's see what you do then." In Julian's pictures, Chloe appeared gentle and affectionate, a stark contrast to the woman I knew. The day I was discharged, I arrived home to find the Sterling family staff decorating the ballroom, and it dawned on me that it was Chloe's birthday. In the living room, she and Julian were holding up outfits, discussing something. The moment she saw me, Chloe bit her lip. "What happened to your nose and chin? Are you hurt?" I shook my head and signed. I had the implants removed. "I'll look like my old self again soon." Chloe wrung her hands, a sense of unease creeping over her. She could tell something about me was different. "Why the sudden change? You once borrowed money just to look more like Julian. I scoffed and began to sign again. I made myself ugly. Is there a problem with me wanting to look good again? Chloe's expression darkened, but she said nothing. Julian also sensed trouble. I had always been his stand-in, so what was my motive for changing my face back? It's my birthday today, Chloe finally said. Make sure you're dressed properly before you join the party. I rolled my eyes, but thinking of the divorce papers waiting to be signed, I simply nodded. That evening, the party was in full swing. Isabella Croft led the pack of New York socialites, with Julian on her arm, and the pair immediately became the center of attention. Look, it's the Croft siblings, someone whispered. Especially Julian. He's the one the Sterling heiress truly loves. I heard he moved into the Sterling mansion right after his own divorce. Chloe must be obsessed with him. What about her actual husband? I hear he's a mute who just follows her around like a puppy. Well, what do you expect from an illegitimate son? So pathetic. Look at him standing over there. He's probably about to cry. A few of Chloe's close friends snickered. It's true. Everyone knows Chloe is crazy about Julian. They were even spotted at a clinic together recently. I bet a wedding is just around the corner. The group erupted in laughter. I remained silent, standing off to the side and drinking my orange juice. Seeing me looking like a kicked puppy as usual, Isabella rounded up her posse of rich kids and cornered me. Well, look who got some work done. It doesn't matter how handsome you are, Ethan, Chloe will never love you. I told you to divorce her ages ago, but you wouldn't listen. Are you happy now? Making a fool of yourself? Isabella ripped the gauze from my face and froze. Staring back at her was the face I had before all the surgeries. Why did you change your face back, Ethan? You know, he was actually really handsome before, one of them remarked. The surgery made his features look strange. Well, if Chloe doesn't want him, maybe we can have a go. The comments grew more explicit. I tried to walk away, but one of the guys shoved me hard, sending me stumbling into the 10-foot-tall birthday cake. The crowd gasped in shock. The force of the push sent me into a violent coughing fit, and I spat blood onto the white frosting, creating a crimson stain. When Chloe rushed over, all she saw was me, a complete mess, and the blood on the cake. Someone call a doctor, she yelled. I slowly picked myself up, shaking my head to signal I was fine. My face was ghostly pale, and Chloe, still worried, grabbed my arm. Just then, we heard Isabella screaming for help. Help! My brother collapsed. Somebody call an ambulance. Chloe looked torn, then let go of my arm. Take care of yourself. Julian's condition is more serious. I have to go check on him. She hurried away, and the crowd dispersed, leaving me, the mute, completely ignored. But then Amelia appeared at my side. Your bandages came off. Let me take you somewhere to get that cleaned up. I smiled and nodded. We were silent for the whole drive, until Amelia finally broke the silence. Ethan, I don't get it. Chloe doesn't love you? So why do you stay with her and let her treat you like this? Doesn't it hurt? I lowered my gaze and took her hand, tracing letters onto her palm. It does, but I have to. I need to complete my mission. As she felt the last word, Amelia's eyes widened with understanding. She realized I wasn't there by choice, but because someone had compelled me to stay with Chloe. I offered no further explanation. I had already told Amelia enough. Later that night, Chloe returned home, drunk. I learned that Julian had suffered a severe allergic reaction to something in the juice at the party and was now in the ICU. Chloe slurred that if she ever found the person who tampered with the juice, she would make them pay dearly. I found it amusing. I showed her a message I had typed on my phone. The orphanage is hosting a charity gala and sent you an invitation. You just need to sign it. You don't actually have to attend. If you sign, I'll forgive you for earlier. Chloe blinked, then let out a low laugh. All right, as long as you forgive me. Ethan, will you forgive me no matter what I do? Seeing that she still wasn't signing, I forced myself to nod. She quickly signed the paper and then threw her arms around me, holding on tight. She had found out she was pregnant a few days ago and had been afraid of my reaction, but she needed an heir for Sterling Enterprises. As long as the baby was born, she wouldn't divorce me yet. After all, she knew how much I loved her. I, completely sober, had to suppress my irritation. I hated being touched, especially by Chloe when she reeked of alcohol. But thinking of my brother gave me the strength to endure it. 3 days left on the countdown. I burned all of my clothes while Chloe was at the hospital with Julian. 2 days left. Isabella sent her people to accuse me of intentionally harming her brother. I denied it, but Chloe rushed home and had me locked in my room. On the final day of the countdown, Chloe confronted me, bringing a maid as her witness. Why did you do it? Why did you hurt Julian? Yes, I'm pregnant, but I'm not divorcing you. Ethan, Is it so impossible for you to tolerate his existence? She didn't even give me a chance to defend myself. Right there, in front of Julian, she had me tied up. Julian, she said, do whatever you need to do to feel better. Julian wiped away fake tears, his eyes gleaming with triumph. The bodyguard struck me with a whip again and again. I tried to sign, to explain, but my hands were bound. I began to cough violently, spitting up blood as the congestion in my lungs made it impossible to breathe. I could only contact the system in my mind. Get a message to Amelia. Don't let my body fall into Julian's or Chloe's hands. The system confirmed the request. I was fading in and out of consciousness, watching the final minutes on the countdown disappear. With 5 minutes left, Amelia arrived. How could you let this happen to you? She cried. I managed a weak smile and struggled to sign. Thank you for coming for me. I'll repay you someday, if I get the chance. In the ambulance on the way to the hospital, I saw the timer hit 0 and finally let out a breath of relief. My hand fell limp. Amelia held my body, her eyes red with tears. Chloe was at her office, trying to work, but she grew more agitated with every document she signed. She couldn't believe I would actually try to harm Julian. In her mind, Julian beating me was letting me off easy. Then, a call came from the mansion's landline. Ms. Sterling, you need to come home. A woman just took Mr. Vance away. He was unconscious. Chloe floored the gas pedal and raced home, arriving to find a large, glaring bloodstain covering the floor. Her brow furrowed as she stared at the trembling maids kneeling on the floor. She picked up a priceless vase and smashed it to pieces. Inwardly, Julian was ecstatic. I was finally gone. Outwardly, however, he put on a sad face. Chloe, please don't be angry. Maybe Ethan planned to run away with someone else all along. Chloe's head snapped toward Julian, her gaze so cold it was startling. Julian guiltily lowered his head, but not before shooting a look at one of the maids. The maid took the cue and spoke up timidly. Ma'am, Mr. Croft might be right. That woman seemed to know Mr. Vance very well. Perhaps they've been involved for a long time. Chloe's frown deepened. She shot the maid a single glare that silenced her instantly. Later, in the security room, Chloe watched the footage of me, covered in blood and barely conscious on the floor, and a sharp pain seized her heart. She couldn't understand it. Was it so difficult for me to just admit I was wrong? Did I have to be so stubborn that I ended up beaten to a pulp? And when she saw another woman helping me to my feet, Chloe's fists clenched even tighter. It was Amelia Hayes, the renowned plastic surgeon who had performed all my procedures. The more Chloe thought about it, the angrier she became. She remembered me saying I'd had my implants removed. Who performed that surgery? Was it Amelia? Julian seized the moment, gently putting his arm around the furious woman. Chloe, you saw the footage. Ethan left with her willingly. I'm sure he's fine. You need to rest. You have to be careful, especially now that you're pregnant. Chloe paused. The baby was conceived one drunken night. Was that why I had lashed out at Julian? How absurd. Her little lapdog had actually grown a spine and run off with another woman. Chloe's expression grew even darker. She didn't even register what Julian was saying. Chloe, are you mad at me? Julian asked, putting on a hurt expression. Do you think I was too hard on Ethan? But my allergic reaction was just so painful. Chloe felt a pang of something uncomfortable, annoyed that I was affecting her emotions this much. I know. I'm not mad at you, Julian. I just think Ethan has gotten far too bold, daring to run away from home like this. Julian immediately soothed her. I knew you wouldn't be mad at me. Ethan is just being childish, so willful for a grown man. Normally, Chloe would have agreed, but right now, she didn't have the energy. Where could he go so badly injured? A hospital, most likely. He'd probably come crawling back in a few days. Or maybe she would condescend to go find him just to be charitable. With that thought, Chloe leaned against Julian and told her security team to monitor all the hospitals in the city. But Amelia wasn't going to a hospital. She was taking my body to a crematorium. She couldn't wrap her head around it. The friend who had just been in her operating room was now a cold, lifeless body in her car. Thinking of Chloe, Amelia's heart ached. But maybe this was a release. Ethan was finally free from his suffering at Chloe's side. Wiping a tear from her eye, she carefully dressed me in a new set of clothes her assistant had just delivered. I looked peaceful with my eyes closed, which only made Amelia's heart ache more. After a long moment, she steeled herself, handed my body over to the staff, and watched as I was wheeled toward the incinerator. On the monitor, my body was slowly moved deeper into the cremation chamber. Suddenly, the door to the viewing room was kicked open. Chloe Sterling stood there, furious. She never imagined that after her guards reported I was missing, she would track Amelia to a crematorium. She stormed in, ready to demand where Amelia had taken me. But then she saw the face on the monitor and her blood ran cold. She tried to convince herself she was seeing things, but the face on the screen was mine. Impossible. Chloe's body trembled, and she collapsed. Amelia looked down at the unconscious Chloe and scoffed. Chloe Sterling was the powerhouse of their social circle, excelling at everything since childhood, the pinnacle of their generation. But after learning what Chloe had done to me, Amelia's admiration had vanished. The woman who was a master strategist in the boardroom was, in her personal life, a fool who couldn't tell right from wrong, allowing others to abuse her own husband. The cremation was completed quickly, and Amelia carefully placed my ashes into an urn. Suddenly, she couldn't bring herself to scatter the ashes into the ocean just yet. If she did, it would feel like I had truly vanished from the world. She decided she would hold a funeral for me first. The news sent ripples through their social circle. Even Amelia's parents questioned her about our relationship. After all, everyone knew me as a member of the Croft family and as Chloe Sterling's husband. By all rights, they should have been the ones to arrange the funeral. Amelia explained my suffering over the years to her parents and clarified that we were only friends. The Hayes were finally reassured and, instead of objecting, began to help their daughter with the arrangements. Chloe remained in a coma for a full day and night. Her assistant and bodyguards were frantic. If she didn't wake up in time for my funeral, they knew they would be the ones to face her wrath later. Meanwhile, Julian was busy playing the concerned friend at the hospital, while simultaneously gossiping on the phone with his buddies. "You guys don't get it. I was just putting on a show for her," he bragged. He seems to have forgotten that a replacement can never compete with the original. Of course, one friend chimed in. "You're the one Chloe really loves. How could that pathetic mute ever compare?" "So, are you going to the funeral?" another asked. Julian sneered. "Absolutely. You all should come with me. I want to watch that idiot's final act." Chloe, who had just regained consciousness, overheard Julian's words and felt a wave of indescribable disappointment. He pretended to be concerned about me, but secretly he wanted me dead. The thought made her head spin, and she slipped back into unconsciousness. In the Croft family living room, Mrs. Croft watched as call after call came in, her face contorted with resentment. "That bastard, is he really dead? Even in death, he's still causing our family so much trouble." Mr. Croft emerged from his study, his expression one of utter disappointment. "And whose fault is that? You're the one who gave birth to a mute. All he's ever done is embarrass our family, unlike Julian, who is so perfect and considerate." Mrs. Croft pouted and handed a peeled orange to Isabella. "Listen to your father." Isabella didn't look up from her phone. "Honestly, you're both worrying over nothing. Julian said he was just beaten up. He's not dead. Besides, that mute is tough as nails. He always bounces back." Mr. and Mrs. Croft nodded in agreement, deciding then and there to attend the funeral to see for themselves if I was truly dead. Meanwhile, I woke up in my own bedroom. The first thing I saw was the familiar, simple decor, a world away from the cold, black and white aesthetic of the Sterling mansion. I checked the time on my phone and realized only 9 hours had passed in my original world. The 9 years I had spent by Chloe's side felt like a long, oppressive nightmare. Thankfully, it was finally over. The image of Amelia's tear-stained face in the ambulance flashed through my mind, and for a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. I had caused her so much trouble. Just then, my phone rang. "Mr. Vance, it's the hospital. Your brother is awake." When I saw my brother, Leo, my eyes instantly filled with tears. The system hadn't lied. He was really awake. Leo smiled faintly and said my name softly. "Ethan." I couldn't hold back my tears any longer and threw my arms around the brother I hadn't seen in what felt like 9 years. The doctors and nurses watched our emotional reunion, remarking on what a medical miracle it was. With tears streaming down his face, Leo studied my features. "Ethan, you must have suffered so much while I was in a coma." I shook my head. "Not at all, Leo. You were only out for a few weeks." But Leo gave a bitter smile. "Ethan, even though I was unconscious, it was like I could see into another world. In that world, there was a boy who looked exactly like you, but he couldn't speak. He was bullied by so many terrible people, beaten until his last breath, and I couldn't do anything to help him. My gut told me that boy was you, my dear brother." At his words, all the pain and injustice I had endured came flooding out, and my eyes burned with tears. "You were only in that car accident because you were trying to save me. This was the only way I could help you. You're the only family I have left." Meanwhile, Chloe remained in a coma for 2 days, finally waking up late one night. Her throat was raw and burning, but the bodyguards outside her door were fast asleep, their snores echoing in the hall. Furious, she swept everything from her bedside table onto the floor, losing her balance and tumbling to the ground in a pathetic heap. Back in her hospital bed, Chloe glared impatiently at the line of bodyguards. "Where is Ethan?" she demanded. "Why isn't he here?" None of them dared to tell her the truth, and they all just stammered incoherently. Braving Chloe's murderous glare, her assistant handed her his tablet, showing an email he'd received 2 hours earlier. The document was titled, "Divorce Agreement." My signature was already on it, dated over a week ago. The tension in the room was palpable. Chloe stared at my familiar signature, and then, unexpectedly, she started to laugh. The other people in the room exchanged worried glances and shook their heads. Suddenly, she slammed the tablet to the ground and screamed, "Ethan Vance, you have some nerve, playing games with me, not even showing up to see me, and now you want me to sign divorce papers? In your dreams. All of you, go find him. I don't care what it takes. Bring him to me." But no one moved a muscle. Chloe's expression soured even more. Since when did her own security team dare to defy her? Her assistant spoke up meekly. "Ms. Sterling, Mr. Vance has been cremated. You were there. You saw it yourself. Please, don't make this harder on us." The assistant felt a shadow fall over him and looked up into Chloe's murderous eyes. Still, thinking of his year-end bonus, he pressed on. "Ms. Sterling, you need to face reality. He's not coming back. His funeral is tomorrow." Chloe crumpled to the floor as if her strings had been cut. Her mind was filled with the image from the crematorium monitor. My face, completely lifeless, devoid of any emotion. Was that really Ethan? No, it couldn't be. He loved her too much to ever leave her. Then Chloe thought of Amelia Hayes, who kept showing up. It had to be her. Amelia was behind all of this. Maybe I was just throwing a tantrum, and I'd conspired with Amelia to put on this elaborate act just to make her jealous. Yes, that had to be it. A confident smile spread across her face. The next day, Chloe dressed in a stylish black suit, a smile on her face that couldn't hide the darkness in her eyes. By the time she and her entourage arrived at the funeral home, a crowd had already gathered, most of them there for the drama. When Julian saw Chloe, his eyes lit up. He brazenly put his arm around her shoulders. "Chloe, are you all right? Your secretary told me you were unconscious." Chloe immediately shrugged his hand off. "She was here to bring me home, and if I saw her with Julian, I would only get jealous and pout." Julian looked embarrassed but tried to hold on. Chloe ignored him and marched over to Amelia, who was standing by the memorial portrait. She grabbed Amelia's wrist. "Where is Ethan? Tell him to come out right now. We're going home." Amelia's parents were stunned and tried to intervene, but Chloe ignored them, signaling for her bodyguards to seize Amelia. Amelia shook them off. "If you're still confused, Miss Sterling, perhaps you should splash some cold water on your face. Look around you. This is your husband's funeral. I can't magically bring him back to life for you. I want to see him dead or alive. He is my husband. What right do you, an outsider, have to dictate anything?" As the two women faced off, Julian shot a look at his sister, Isabella. Isabella stepped forward and announced to the crowd, "If you ask me, my mute brother isn't dead at all. You know what they say, the quiet ones are the toughest. This is all just an act, orchestrated by Amelia and that mute to embarrass the Croft family and Miss Sterling." The crowd began to murmur, throwing all sorts of insults my way. Chloe narrowed her eyes, displeased. Could Isabella be right? Was I really being that childish and reckless? Amelia's anger boiled over. She looked at Isabella's smug face and slapped her across the cheek. "Are you even human? Your own brother is dead, and you're calling it an act? Does your family have any shame at all?" The scene descended into chaos as Amelia and Isabella started fighting, neither backing down. Chloe ordered her bodyguards to separate them, then turned to Amelia, suppressing a strange feeling in her gut. "If you claim he's dead, then where is his body? Where are his ashes? Without proof, why should I believe you?" Amelia laughed, a sharp, humorless sound, saying nothing about the ashes. "Have you forgotten why you fainted at the crematorium? And haven't you received certain documents in your email? Whether Ethan is truly dead or not, I think you know the answer deep down." The image of my face on the monitor flashed in her mind again, and an uncontrollable pain seized her heart. She told herself I was just angry, that this whole funeral was a ploy to get her to publicly appease me. But I never appeared, and Amelia was adamant that I was gone. Who was she to believe? Chloe didn't understand why I hadn't shown myself. She had already humbled herself by coming here. What more could I possibly want? She knew I loved her to my very core, that I did everything in my power to please her and never refused a single one of her demands. Chloe had always been secretly pleased by how much her mute admirer cared for her. And yet, at times, I seemed completely indifferent. I never questioned the marks on her neck, and when she came home in the middle of the night, I never asked where she had been. Without realizing it, tears were streaming down Chloe's face. Maybe she really had made a terrible mistake, and that's why I wouldn't come back to her. Her phone buzzed, and she frantically unlocked it. She thought it might be a message from me, but instead, she found hundreds of videos documenting the abuse I had suffered at the hands of the Croft family. The clearest video showed Julian in his hospital room, deliberately striking his own face to frame me. Chloe was utterly shaken. She had known Julian her whole life. He was supposed to be gentle and kind, but the undeniable proof in these photos and videos told a very different story. Couldn't be true. With trembling hands, Chloe called her assistant. Find an expert. I want these videos and photos authenticated, right here in front of me, and no one else is to know about this. A few hours later, she stared grimly at the report. They were all authentic. She randomly played one of the videos. Julian's voice, dripping with contempt, filled the silence. You'll only ever be a stand-in. Chloe is crazy about me. How does a pathetic mute like you have the nerve to even be near her? Chloe could no longer contain her rage and hurled the phone against the wall. She couldn't believe the man she thought she loved could be so two-faced, so cruel. And what about me? How much pain must I have been in when I heard those words? Get the 4 Crofts over here, she commanded. Tell them I'm inviting them to dinner. The Crofts were thrilled by the invitation. Mrs. Croft, in particular, was eager to show off her most valuable jewels. When they arrived, Julian noticed fewer staff were there to greet them than usual, but he didn't think much of it. Where's Chloe? He asked her assistant. Why isn't she here to welcome us? The next moment, a group of imposing bodyguards surrounded the family. A knot of anxiety formed in Julian's stomach. Chloe's voice was calm when she finally spoke. Do any of you know where Ethan went? Isabella was the first to snap back. Chloe, what is this? That mute has his own 2 feet. How should I know where he went? Let me go. Is this any way to treat the sister of the man you're in love with? Chloe glanced at Isabella's arrogant face. Remembering all the times Isabella had screamed at me with that same attitude, a fire ignited within her. Chloe snatched a stun baton from her assistant's hand. Who? She said, bringing it down hard. Gave you permission to speak to me like that? The baton made contact, and Isabella screamed, her body convulsing before she passed out. Julian was terrified. He crept forward and clutched at Chloe's leg, looking utterly pathetic. Chloe, what's wrong? Why are you so angry? Please don't upset yourself. It's not good for the baby. In the past, this display would have melted her heart. But now, seeing the man who had bullied and framed me, she felt a pain sharper than any she had known before. Chloe instinctively touched her stomach. If I was truly gone, what was the point of this child? Julian, what happened to you? She asked, her voice hollow. Why would you frame Ethan? You were never like this. Julian stammered, trying to defend himself. Chloe, it's just, I love you so much. It hurts me to see him with you. I'm so sorry. Chloe looked down at his hand, clutching her clothes, and violently tore it away. She realized with certainty that she was disgusted by him and had no desire to hear any more of his lies. She then threw the phone, still playing the videos, in front of Mr. and Mrs. Croft. Mrs. Croft's face went pale. Miss Sterling, Ethan is our son. We adore him. We would never bully him, Mr. Croft added with a sycophantic smile. The boy was always withdrawn. What you saw must have been him being disciplined for misbehaving. We're his parents. We would never harm him. Those videos must be fake. Chloe, dear, for Julian's sake, you can't do this to us. Chloe let out a cold laugh. How had she never realized how utterly shameless the Crofts were? She then played the clear security footage, including a long clip of Isabella beating me senseless. The 3 of them collapsed in a heap, still trying to lie. You don't deserve to be his parents. Seeing their pathetic state only fueled Chloe's anger. I had always been too gentle, never telling anyone when I was being bullied. A sudden, chilling thought struck her. Did Ethan never tell me because he assumed I wouldn't believe him, that I wouldn't help him? Teach them a lesson, she ordered her guards. As she turned to leave, she stumbled and fell hard. A sharp pain shot through her abdomen, and she knew something was terribly wrong. Call 911, she gasped to her assistant. She had been trying to console herself, thinking that even if she miscarried, it would be all right. But the young doctor approached her with a grim expression. Miss Sterling, you're not pregnant. What you experienced were symptoms of a phantom pregnancy. Chloe was stunned into silence. The test over a week ago had been positive. Are you sure? She asked. Positive. It appears you've been taking a drug, something like letrozole, which can induce these symptoms. The ultrasound is perfectly clear. Chloe narrowed her eyes, remembering how insistent Julian had been that she go to the doctor. A seed of suspicion was planted, but mostly, she felt a strange sense of relief. Without this child, maybe I wouldn't be so angry with her anymore. She decided to stay in the hospital to recover. Plagued by anxiety and a desperate longing for me, she couldn't sleep and began taking sleeping pills. The first night, she dreamed of me. I was a boy in a school uniform, laughing and talking with my friends. But the dream was fleeting, and she woke up in a cold sweat, the sight of the empty hospital room a harsh dose of reality. The next day, she took the pills again, and this time she dreamed I was in a room painting. But the dream was even shorter than the last. Realizing the pills were the key, Chloe began to recklessly increase her dosage, desperate to see me again, forcing herself into a drugged sleep. She was soon sleeping 20 hours a day. Her assistant and doctors quickly realized what was happening. Shocked by her recklessness, they had no choice but to pump her stomach. When she finally woke up, her eyes were vacant, and her heart felt hollow. The doctors refused to prescribe any more sleeping pills. She could no longer dream of me. Back in my own world, I started to feel that something was wrong. I was living my life as normal, but I constantly had the feeling of being watched, though no one was ever there when I looked. On top of that, I started getting frequent headaches, and one day I fainted in the middle of a lecture. My brother, Leo, was terrified and rushed me to the hospital for every test imaginable, but the doctors couldn't find anything wrong. My condition continued to worsen. I could feel a strange pull, deep in my soul, as if someone was searching for me. The thought was startling, and the first person who came to mind was Chloe. Could this have something to do with her? Soon after, during a nap, the system reappeared. Warning: Chloe Sterling's intense emotional distress is destabilizing your soul. It is recommended that you return to her world. Failure to do so will result in irreversible damage to your physical body. And if I don't go back? I asked. Then you will likely fall gravely ill and eventually perish. Your soul has been linked to hers for too long. This is beyond the system's ability to repair. I felt a wave of helplessness. Fine, I'll go back. But you never mentioned these side effects. I'm going back with my brother, Leo. We'll need new identities, and I will not be mute. The system agreed and gave me 3 days to prepare. Leo and I quickly packed, told our friends we were moving abroad for a while, and then stepped into the portal together. Back in her world, unable to dream of me any longer, Chloe panicked. She consulted countless psychiatrists, but none could help her. One doctor even suggested she might be having a psychotic break and insisted on running a full psychiatric evaluation. But Chloe knew she wasn't sick. She just missed me. The nightly, intangible pain kept her nerves frayed and on edge. Down in the basement of her mansion, Isabella lay on the floor, half dead, her arm broken. Mr. and Mrs. Croft were huddled in a corner, silent. The moment Julian saw Chloe, he scrambled toward her. Chloe considered her treatment of Julian merciful. She hadn't had him tortured, merely locked him in the basement with the rest of his family. "Chloe, I was wrong," he cried. "I shouldn't have hurt Ethan, but I only did it because I love you so much. And we have a child together. You can't be this cruel. Please, Chloe, let me go. I'll never do it again." Chloe rubbed her throbbing temples, glanced down at her flat stomach, and let out a hollow laugh. "Julian, the doctors say I was never pregnant. Multiple doctors have confirmed it was a phantom pregnancy." The color drained from Julian's face. His lips trembled, but no words came out. Chloe found it grimly amusing. She finally understood why she had never conceived a child with me in 9 years, yet somehow became pregnant with Julian's after a single night. It had all been a setup. She then remembered the day Julian took her for her checkup, the same day she'd seen the lung cancer diagnosis in my hand. The memory brought the taste of blood to her mouth. I had been sick, and I had hidden it from her. She clenched her fists, but a part of her was relieved that the child wasn't real. Just then, her assistant burst in. "Ms. Sterling, Julian Croft's ex-wife is here. She says he was giving you drugs to fake the pregnancy, and that he drugged you that night you were together." Chloe was stunned for a moment before striding into the living room, where a blonde woman was waiting. "Ms. Sterling, I'm Julian's ex-wife. To be honest, our divorce wasn't even finalized when he ran back here, right after my company went bankrupt." The woman handed over a thick file of evidence, containing everything from sworn statements by the doctor who had faked the pregnancy test to transaction records for the drugs Julian had purchased. "He cleaned me out financially," she said. "I'm telling you this because I need your help to get my money back." Chloe's knuckles turned white as she gripped the file. She knew Julian was flawed, but she never imagined he was capable of something like this. What else had he done? When her assistant confirmed the evidence was all authentic, she felt a hot rush of pure rage. "Where is Julian?" she roared. "Bring him here." A nearby maid, who was pouring water, felt a chill run down her spine as the bodyguards dragged a pale Julian into the room. "I'll ask you one time," Chloe said, her voice dangerously low. "Was it you who drugged me?" "Of course not, Chloe," he yelped. The next second, Chloe's control snapped, and she slapped him hard across the face. "I gave you a chance to tell the truth," she screamed. "Why, Julian, why would you do this? Haven't I always been good to you?" The sting on his face was nothing compared to the panic he felt when he saw the evidence file on the floor. "Chloe, I just wanted you to divorce him. I thought a baby would give you the courage to finally leave him." Chloe let out a cold laugh, grabbing his jaw in a vice grip. "How clever of you, drugging me to get what you want." She shoved him away, and he crumpled to the floor, ignored by everyone. One of the maids, seeing her chance, instantly realized Julian had fallen from grace. She quickly knelt before Chloe. "Ms. Sterling, I have something to tell you. Mr. Croft's allergic reaction, it was all a setup. He did it to himself to frame Mr. Vance. I have proof." The maid quickly pulled out her phone, showing iMessage logs and transaction records. A chill went through Chloe as she scrolled through the messages, which were all reports from the maid to Julian about Chloe's own movements. The last message was a voice note from Julian, ordering the maid to pin the blame on me no matter what. So I had been framed, and she had personally handed me over to Julian. A twisting pain gripped Chloe's chest, and sweat beaded on her forehead. The other maids saw their employer's distress and knew it was time to speak up. "Ma'am, Mr. Croft was brutal," one said. "He insisted on dipping the whip in hot sauce. When Mr. Vance passed out, he had him splashed with cold water to wake him up again. He threatened us, ma'am," another added. "He told us to keep our mouths shut." Julian's eyes widened in horror. He started crawling toward Chloe, crying, but the bodyguards kicked him away. "I can explain, Chloe. Please." Chloe ordered them to gag him. She couldn't stand to hear his pathetic, fake apologies. Now she finally saw Julian for who he truly was, a manipulative liar who had drugged her, framed me, and abused her trust. The revelations sent her mind reeling. Julian had played her for a fool, and she had been his willing accomplice. She couldn't help but wonder, if she had seen his true colors sooner, would I still have been hurt? Would I still be alive? "Make Julian suffer," she said, her voice devoid of emotion, "and fire all these maids." The vast mansion fell silent once more, but for Chloe, the pain was bone deep. She remembered all the times she had accused me, how I had desperately tried to explain myself with sign language. The irony was crushing. She hadn't believed me, hadn't even given me a chance to defend myself, and had condemned me based on her own biased assumptions. Her mind flooded with memories from the past 9 years, the way she would feel a secret thrill when I tried to comfort her, the jealousy she felt toward my female colleagues, the smug satisfaction she got when I cherished a simple gift from her. Even when I changed my face back, her primary feeling wasn't suspicion, but a strange excitement. I was more handsome than before, more noticeable, and it made her feel insecure. Looking at the blood on her own hands, Chloe let out a broken laugh. She had fallen in love with me, and she hadn't even realized it. How ridiculous that she was only realizing it now. I was gone, and she, his unworthy wife, didn't even have his body or his ashes. I must have hated her so much. Chloe didn't remember leaving the mansion. Her mind was a chaotic mess. One moment she was laughing, the next she was sobbing. She ended up in her usual private booth at a high-end bar, ordering dozens of shots of the strongest liquor they had. The alcohol burned her stomach, sending her into a coughing fit. Her face was paper white, and she couldn't stop retching. She missed me desperately, but since she couldn't see me, she tried to numb the pain with alcohol. Chloe looked at her pathetic reflection in the mirror and smiled bitterly. She wanted to hold me, to apologize, to tell me she loved me. She would do anything, repent, kneel, beg for forgiveness, if only I would come back. She drank until she was dizzy, her head pounding. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw a figure walk past her booth. The man's back looked strikingly similar to mine. Her breath caught in her throat. Ignoring her numb legs, she stumbled out of the booth and saw a familiar profile standing by a door down the hall. I had distinctive eyes, a straight nose, and sharp features. I was tall and stood out in a crowd. "Ethan," Chloe cried out, her voice filled with desperation. The man in the distance flinched and turned to look. She rushed forward, trying to reach him, but was blocked by his bodyguards. "Who do you think you are?" one of them snarled. "Mr. Vance is here for a business meeting. Are you trying to land a rich man? Back off or we'll make you." "Plenty of women try to get Mr. Vance's attention," another added. "If you're going to try, at least make an effort to look presentable." Chloe looked down at herself. She was wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago, stained with dried alcohol and smelling sour. A flush of shame washed over her. I glanced at the woman, her cheeks flushed from alcohol and her clothes a wrinkled mess, and felt a flicker of surprise. Chloe had always been impeccably neat and never drank to excess. Why did she look like such a wreck? I had to admit, hearing my old name startled me. But what did it matter? In my new identity, I was the heir to the Vanguard Group. Chloe had no power over me now, and she certainly couldn't help Julian hurt me anymore. I waved a dismissive hand at my security. Get rid of her. I don't know this woman. Then I walked into the private room. The moment Chloe heard me speak, she froze. I was mute. I couldn't possibly speak. Had she made a mistake? Then she remembered my face on the monitor at the crematorium, and the familiar, sharp pain in her chest forced her to bend over. Did you hear him? Get lost, one of the bodyguards said. When Chloe didn't move, they shoved her hard. She fell to the floor, and the sharp pain in her back shocked her back to her senses. A wave of frustration washed over her. She was annoyed that she hadn't brought her own security, and even more annoyed that this man who looked so much like me wasn't mute. And yet, she couldn't deny the surge of hope she had felt when she first saw him. Chloe returned to her booth, her mind racing. She replayed the encounter in her head, his voice, his posture. Then it hit her. When he had spoken to his bodyguards, he had subconsciously rubbed his fingernails. I had the exact same habit. It was the first thing I did before I started to sign. A coincidence? Chloe didn't think so. She immediately called her assistant. I need you to find out if a young heir with the last name Vance has recently arrived in New York. I want everything you can find on him, especially photos. After changing into fresh clothes, Chloe pulled up a chair and sat right outside my booth. My bodyguards were about to remove her, but the bar manager stopped them. Don't touch her. That's Chloe Sterling, head of the Sterling family. You're new here, but trust me, you don't want to mess with her. The two bodyguards froze, suddenly nervous about having shoved her earlier. But Chloe had no intention of retaliating. They were just following orders from their boss, who was very likely Ethan. She could understand why he would be angry to see her again. An hour later, her assistant arrived with a file and cautiously began to read. Ethan Vance, 27, heir to the Vanguard Group, recently returned to the U.S. He has an older brother, Leo Vance, who is reportedly in poor health. He's here to oversee a new Vanguard Group investment project in New York. Chloe impatiently flipped through the file. Page after page described a driven, career-focused man. Other than the striking physical resemblance, this Ethan Vance had nothing in common with the mute I used to be. She tossed the file aside in frustration, just as the door to my booth opened. I stood there, a smirk on my face. Ms. Sterling, pleasure to finally meet you, though you really didn't have to investigate me right outside my door. Chloe felt her face burn. His voice was smooth and clear, nothing like the choke sounds I used to make. Ethan, can we please stop this? I know I was wrong. Let's just go home. I'm afraid you have me mistaken for someone else, Miss Sterling. My name is Ethan Vance. You may be a big deal in New York, but I'm not intimidated by you. Now, get out of my way. The onlookers gasped. They couldn't believe the Vance heir would dare to speak to Chloe Sterling that way. But then they looked at his face, a perfect copy of her late husband's, and it somehow made sense. But Chloe held her ground. You don't have to admit it, Mr. Vance. But why do you have the same habit of rubbing your nails as my husband? Is that also a coincidence? I felt a jolt of alarm, but I forced a sneer. You're basing your entire theory on one little gesture? That's pathetic, Ms. Sterling. She scanned my face, searching for any sign, any flaw that would give me away, but found nothing. Could it really just be a coincidence? After a sleepless night, she couldn't resist any longer and drove to the Vance family's estate. Ms. Sterling, I said, greeting her at the door. We met yesterday, we're practically friends. Care to join me for breakfast? I looked at her hopeful expression, and a memory flashed in my mind. Me as Ethan, begging her to eat something in the morning. The thought sent a sharp pain through my chest. No, thank you, Miss Sterling. We've met once. I heard about your husband's passing, and while I sympathize with your grief, you can't just latch onto the first person you see who bears a resemblance. The hope in Chloe's eyes died. Ethan, is that really what you think of me? I know it's you. I feigned annoyance. All right, that's enough. I have a new life now, a new identity, a real family. The past 9 years were just a mission. Ethan Vance is dead. It's pathetic that you can't let go. If you don't leave now, I'm calling the police. I pushed her hand away, my eyes filled with the disgust I didn't have to fake. Chloe looked as if she'd been stabbed. The old Ethan would never have looked at her with such contempt. His eyes had only ever held adoration for her. A light breeze rustled the leaves as I walked away, leaving Chloe standing motionless on the driveway. If the resemblance was a coincidence, why did her gut feeling scream otherwise? She stood there for a long time before making a decision. She would find a way to test me. Chloe's first thought was the burn. I had a large burn scar on my back. So, she arranged for an accident at a cafe, where a waiter accidentally spilled a full cup of coffee on me. "I am so sorry," she said, rushing over. "Please, let me buy you a new shirt." I was already in a hurry and now even more annoyed. I quickly took the shirt she offered and went to a fitting room, completely oblivious to the sales associate she had paid off. A moment later, the associate reported back to her. "Ms. Sterling, he does have a scar on his back." A wave of triumph washed over Chloe. When I emerged from the fitting room, she was practically vibrating with excitement. "Mr. Vance, you can deny it all you want, but you have a scar on your back. My husband had a scar just like it. It is you, isn't it?" I was genuinely confused at first, then surprised she had found a tell. But I wasn't ready to admit anything. "What, do you have a habit of spying on people in changing rooms, Miss Sterling? This scar is from a family matter. You can ask anyone in my family if you don't believe me." I even helpfully lifted the collar of my new shirt. "Here, take a look. Is this the scar your husband had?" Chloe looked, and her face fell. What she saw was a long, faded pink line, clearly from a whip, not the large, mottled scar from a burn. Her hope died. I pulled away from her, breathing an internal sigh of relief. Thankfully, the system had removed my old scars when I arrived. The new one was from a family disciplinary action I'd arranged before my public return. Chloe was once again plagued by doubt. She considered the possibility that I had found a way to conceal the real scar. Then she remembered my severe pollen allergy and began to send enormous bouquets of flowers to my office every day. The air in my office was thick with their cloying scent. At first, I thought it was just another one of her desperate attempts to woo me. But after I let out a sudden violent sneeze, I realized it was another test. Despite my best efforts to stay away from them, red hives began to appear on my neck and elbows. I was just swallowing an allergy pill when Chloe burst into my office, shoving past my security guards. Her eyes lit up with triumph when she saw the hives on my hands. "It is you." Ethan was allergic to pollen too. I just smiled and shook my head, tilting my neck to show her the red marks there. "Mosquito bites from last night. I was out camping with a date. It's perfectly normal." Chloe frowned in disbelief. It seemed too convenient to be a coincidence. But when her assistant later confirmed my schedule, she was at a loss. She knew the marks on my neck weren't hives. The thought of me being with another woman sent a sharp, jealous pain through her. "Are you leaving, Miss Sterling?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "This is a private office. Barging in like this shows a real lack of class." My mocking gaze felt like a bucket of ice water dumped over her head. Soon, all of New York's high society was buzzing with the news. Chloe Sterling was obsessively pursuing Ethan Vance. The strangest part was that he was a spitting image of her late husband. People remembered that I had been a substitute for her first love, and suddenly, it all seemed to make a twisted kind of sense. Gossip columnists had a field day, commenting on her consistent type. Even her own assistant thought she was just looking for a replacement, and after much hesitation, he finally said, "Ms. Sterling, he's gone. Finding people who look like him won't bring him back." Chloe's face went pale with rage, and she threw her tablet across the room. Shut up. Was she really that pathetic, always chasing after substitutes? Or was she the only one who could see the truth? After a long silence, she asked her assistant, her expression conflicted, "Do you think he looks like Ethan?" "The resemblance is uncanny, ma'am, but they're nothing alike. Their entire presence is different. I don't see how you could mistake one for the other." Chloe gave a bitter laugh. To everyone else, she must look insane. But she had spent 9 years with me. She trusted her instincts. And yet, every time she tested him, this Ethan Vance had a plausible explanation. Then, her assistant handed her an invitation to a charity gala for an orphanage, and an idea struck her. My only family in New York had been the Crofts. Other than them, the only place I cared about was that orphanage. If one of those children was in trouble, would I be able to maintain my cover? She immediately had her assistant arrange a meeting with me there, under the guise of discussing a large donation. It was Chloe's first time visiting the place. She was surprised to find it filled with the sounds of happy, laughing children. Chloe's assistant gave a subtle nod to a boy he'd paid earlier. The boy promptly shoved a smaller child named Leo to the ground. The two started fighting, with little Leo clearly losing. When I saw it happen, my heart leaped into my throat. At a signal from Chloe, none of the adults intervened. Did you bring me all the way out here just to watch a schoolyard fight, Miss Sterling? I asked coolly. Of course not, she replied. That little boy, Leo, he was my husband's favorite. The moment the boy saw me, he burst into tears. Ethan, help me, he cried out. Then, the small, teary-eyed boy began to sign. It was a secret signal only he and I knew. My heart twisted in my chest, and my eyes began to burn. My hands instinctively rose, ready to sign back to him. But then I saw the look of triumph on Chloe's face, and I let out a quiet sigh. I frowned and turned to leave, but she grabbed my wrist, her grip like steel. Why are your eyes red, Mr. Vance? She asked, her voice laced with victory. Feeling sorry for the boy? I wrenched my arm free, my gaze turning to ice. I got some dust in my eye. I'm not interested in your games, Miss Sterling. Your desperate attempts to test me are pointless. Your husband is dead. Accept it. Chloe's eyes were bloodshot as she stared at me, but other than my red-rimmed eyes, she could find no other reaction. The old Ethan would have rushed over instantly. After a long, tense silence, she finally lowered her head, tears blurring her vision. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was mistaken. You can go. Meanwhile, Chloe's obsessive behavior had not gone unnoticed by Amelia. Before I had shown up, Chloe had been a wreck. Now, she was throwing herself at a man who was my perfect double. Was she just looking for a replacement, or was there something more to it? Amelia ran her hand over the urn she still kept. The memory of my cremation was still painfully clear. It was impossible for me to be alive. But could Chloe really be that mistaken? She had seen the way Chloe looked at this new man. That kind of love couldn't be faked. She remembered my pulse growing weaker in the ambulance, my body growing cold. Her mind went blank. Without realizing it, she was resting her head against the cool wood of the urn. After a long moment, she sighed. She had to meet this Ethan Vance. Hello, Mr. Vance. My name is Amelia Hayes. I'd like to meet with you if possible. You bear a striking resemblance to a dear friend I lost. Hearing Amelia's voice on the phone, I felt a sense of relief. I knew my appearance would raise questions among people from my past, but I wasn't afraid of them, especially not Amelia, who had been so kind to me. Of course, Dr. Hayes. I had a feeling we might have met before. Amelia was surprised I had agreed so easily. She was nervous, but also thrilled. Could it be him? Or was there some other connection? She eagerly scheduled a meeting at an exclusive seaside restaurant. It was one of the quietest, most elegant French places in New York, notoriously difficult to book, but Amelia had reserved the entire restaurant for us. She had even ordered flowers and pre-approved the menu, all to make sure everything was perfect. When I arrived, Amelia was leaning back in her chair, gazing out at the ocean, looking just as calm and serene as she had the day I first walked into her clinic. I smiled and sat down across from her. Dr. Hayes, it's good to see you. Then I noticed the urn she was holding and froze. For her part, even though she had seen photos, seeing me in person was a shock. I looked exactly the same. The only difference was my voice. Hello, she began, her voice soft. The friend I mentioned, you know who I mean. I was the one who had him cremated, but I couldn't bring myself to scatter his ashes. I know he might be angry, but I just wanted. I shook my head, my expression softening. After 9 years in that world, I hadn't made many friends. Amelia had helped me so much, and I trusted her completely. I had no reason to lie. Dr. Hayes, I can assure you, your friend isn't angry with you, because he's sitting right here. Amelia's eyes widened in shock. The urn slipped from her grasp and crashed to the floor. After a long moment, she spoke, her voice trembling. Ethan, I nodded. I'm doing well. It's been a while. Hearing my confirmation, Amelia's heart fluttered. A dead man, resurrected with a new identity. It was beyond strange. But seeing that it was me, she had no desire to question it. How can you prove it's you? She asked, still skeptical. What if you're an imposter? And how can you speak? The fact that I'm here should be proof enough, I replied with a smile. As for the rest, that's a secret. Amelia was stunned for a moment, then she laughed. Of course it is. Does Chloe know? I focused on cutting my steak, then looked up and winked. I don't love her. What she does is none of my concern. I'm Ethan Vance now, not that mute. I did it all for my brother, Leo. And now, my suffering is finally over. My dramatic flair made Amelia laugh. The moment I said I didn't love Chloe, she felt a surge of happiness. Compared to the broken, silent man from before, this new version of me was so much happier. Amelia picked up the urn from the floor and handed it to me. Then this belongs to you. I looked at the wooden box, my hand tightening around it. I looked up and saw the vast, endless ocean stretching out before us. You picked a convenient spot, Dr. Hayes, I said. I stood, opened the box, and walked to the large open window, holding the ashes in my hands. Just then, the door to the restaurant burst open, and Chloe stood there, looking frantic. She had almost convinced herself to give up, but when she heard that Amelia had arranged to meet me, she couldn't contain her excitement. Amelia and I were close. Did this meeting prove that Ethan Vance was really me? That all his previous denials were just a front? But now, seeing me standing by the window holding an urn, a new panic seized her. "No!" she screamed. "Those are Ethan's ashes." I turned and laughed, then relaxed my grip. The box tumbled from my hands and fell into the ocean below. "Ethan!" Chloe screamed, a look of pure agony on her face. Without a second's hesitation, she leaped from the window into the sea after it. The shock of the cold water jolted her, and she saw the wooden box, now waterlogged, sinking slowly into the depths. Chloe held her breath and swam down after it with all her might. I leaned against the window, watching her disappear beneath the waves. For a moment, I felt a flicker of something, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of bitter irony. She hadn't cared when I was alive, but now she was willing to jump into the ocean for a box of my ashes. Back in the restaurant, Chloe's assistant was stunned. He never imagined his boss would jump into the ocean. "Help!" he yelled. "Somebody help her! Call the Coast Guard! Get divers!" The restaurant erupted into chaos. I, however, remained calm and simply gestured for Amelia to continue her meal. "Aren't you worried about her?" she asked. "I'm Ethan Vance," I replied. "Why should I be worried about a stranger? Besides, those were my ashes. I can do whatever I want with them." They eventually pulled Chloe from the water. She was alive, but unconscious and deathly pale. I saw she was clutching the urn to her chest, and I quickly looked away. I was about to leave when her assistant stopped me. "Mr. Vance, why did you throw his ashes away?" he demanded. "Do you have any idea how much that urn meant to her?" "So what?" I retorted. "His last wish was to have his ashes scattered at sea. He's dead. Why can't your boss just let him rest in peace?" The assistant found it hard to be harsh with me, looking at my face, but he couldn't hold back his frustration. "She's just emotionally stunted. She really did love him. She was a wreck after he died. And when she found out the truth, she punished the Crofts. She's been trying so hard to make things right." I laughed out loud. Her love had always been for Julian. She had treated her devoted husband with nothing but cold indifference. What good was trying to atone to a dead man? Chloe was in the hospital with water in her lungs, unconscious for a day and a night. When she woke, she couldn't forget the look in my eyes. Cold, cruel, and final. She had managed to retrieve the urn, but the ashes inside had long since dissolved into the sea. She had been furious but helpless. A fit of coughing that brought up blood finally shocked her back to full awareness. Her health was failing, but now there was no one to patiently coax her to take her medicine, no one to carefully prepare meals for her picky palate. The man who had once loved her so much wouldn't even leave her his ashes. Her eyes burned with unshed tears as she stared at the ceiling and let out a low, broken laugh. She thought about how calm I had been when I'd thrown the urn, and how Amelia, who had guarded those ashes so fiercely, had simply allowed it to happen. Amelia's deference to me, combined with all the other suspicious details, it all pointed to one conclusion: Ethan Vance was me. Her breathing grew ragged, and the heart monitor beside her bed began to beep erratically. Her assistant rushed in, terrified, only to find her laughing. "Doctor," the assistant yelled. "Ms. Sterling, please, you have to take care of yourself. Even though he's gone, the Crofts are still out there. They're the ones who killed him. You can't die." At his words, Chloe's eyes, which had drifted shut, snapped open. She remembered. If she wanted to prove once and for all that Ethan Vance was me, she needed Julian Croft. She gave her assistant quiet instructions, and a moment later, my phone was ringing. "Mr. Vance," she said, "I know you're looking for local partners for your new project. Sterling Enterprises can be of assistance. My only condition is that you meet me at my home in 3 days." I was having dinner with Leo when the call came. At the sound of her voice, a sad look crossed my brother's face. "Ethan, is that the woman who hurt you?" he asked. "Don't see her. People like that aren't worth your time." I smiled and reassured him. "It's fine, Leo. It's just business. Don't you trust me?" Leo reluctantly agreed, but insisted I take extra security. 3 days later, I arrived at the Sterling mansion. I knew the way so well I didn't need a servant to guide me to the main house. When I saw Chloe again, she was sitting alone in a wheelchair, her head bowed, the picture of loneliness. "Ms. Sterling," I said, "I'm here. What did you want to discuss about the partnership?" She looked up, and I saw she was holding a ring. It was our wedding ring, the one she'd had her assistant pick out at random. I used to like wearing it, until one day she saw it and snapped, "Don't think that ring makes you my husband. A mute like you should learn to stay in his place." That was the moment I sobered up, the moment I remembered I was just completing a mission and shouldn't get attached. "You're here, Ethan," she said, her voice raspy. "I wanted to give you Julian Croft." The next moment, a battered and broken Julian was dragged into the room. He was barely conscious, but at the sight of me, his eyes widened in terror. "You're Ethan Vance? No, that's impossible. He's dead. He was barely breathing when I was done with him. Who are you?" I looked at Chloe, my eyes twinkling with amusement. "So, you're convinced I'm your dead husband, and this is your way of letting me get my revenge?" Chloe's heart pounded in her chest. She nodded. I swallowed the denial that was on the tip of my tongue. After all her tests and my stunt with the ashes, I knew she would never give up. Then I thought of little Leo's bruised face at the orphanage, and my resolve hardened. "All right," I said. "I know Mr. Croft has quite a history of tormenting Ethan Vance. The false accusations, the whippings, the burns." With each word I spoke, the color drained further from Chloe's face. I nodded to my own security team, who quickly gagged and bound Julian. "Then let's give him a taste of his own medicine. I think Ethan would appreciate that." For the next several hours, the only sounds in the Sterling mansion were Julian's muffled sobs. Chloe stood by silently, occasionally stealing glances at my profile, her nerves on edge. The fact that I was doing this in front of her was a tacit admission of my identity. The question now was, would I forgive her? I stretched lazily, then tilted her chin up. Seeing the fear and hope warring in her eyes, I smiled. "Ms. Sterling, I went to the trouble of getting a whole new life, and still you insist on chasing after me. Do you want me to forgive you?" Chloe's pupils constricted. "Ethan," I placed a finger on her lips and shook my head. "I hold a grudge. You should know that Julian only dared to treat that mute the way he did because you let him. You were an accomplice. Do you have any idea how much pain he was in when he died? Do you know how much he suffered in silence? You don't. Which means, Chloe, your love is worthless." A tear escaped her eye and fell onto my hand. She suddenly dropped to her knees, her voice raw. "Ethan, please just give me a chance. I was never pregnant. Julian drugged me. He faked the whole thing to try and force me to divorce you. But I never wanted a divorce. Everything I did it to make you love me more. Ethan, if you'll just forgive me, I'll give you anything. The partnership, Sterling Enterprises, all of it." A sharp pain shot through my chest, but I just smiled and shook my head, prying her fingers from my arm. "But Ethan Vance is dead. You killed him, and I have no intention of forgiving you in his place." Chloe stared at me in disbelief, the metallic taste of blood in her mouth making her feel sick. It was true. The mute she had known wasn't made of stone. Of course he would be angry, but she wanted to atone, and I wasn't giving her the chance. She looked up at my face. The struggles I must have gone through to come back, to regain my voice, she knew nothing about any of it. A profound sense of helplessness washed over her. All she could do was watch me walk away, just as she had once walked away from me for Julian. Chloe turned her head and looked at the bloody mess that was Julian, a wave of desolation washing over her. I didn't take a car when I left the Sterling mansion. I walked, taking in the familiar scenery. I had walked this road for 9 years. I knew every single tree. As I reached the edge of the city, a beggar scrambled toward me. "Sir, please, you have to help us. My daughter's arm is broken. Please, can you spare some money?" The voice was familiar. I looked closer and realized it was Mrs. Croft. "Ethan Vance? You're alive," she shrieked. "This is all your fault. You faked your death, and Chloe went insane. She took everything from us. The Croft family is bankrupt. Are you happy now? My name is Ethan Vance." "You have the wrong person," I said, shaking my head and trying to leave, but she clung to my leg. Just then, Mr. Croft appeared, pulling a makeshift cart. Lying on it, gasping for breath, was Isabella. "I don't believe you," Mrs. Croft wailed. "You're my son. I know my own son's face. You have to help us. Help your sister. You can't just leave us to die." I looked down at the three of them, pathetic and broken, and felt nothing but disgust. When they first took me in, Isabella had bullied and beaten me constantly, while her parents turned a blind eye. I had been too young and timid to fight back. This was just karma. "Let go of me, or I'm calling the police," I said, pulling my leg free. The commotion woke Isabella, who started sobbing the moment she saw me. "Brother, please help us. We're your family. Please, I'll never hurt you again. I promise." I frowned. I remembered how she used to worship Julian, how she had tormented me for his sake. How pathetic she looked now. "You have the wrong person. My name is Ethan Vance. The man you're talking about was mute. Hello, 911? I'm being harassed and extorted by some vagrants. I watched the police lead the three of them away, and I couldn't help but laugh. Ethan Vance, you monster. Mrs. Croft screamed from the police car. We're your parents. You'll rot in hell for this. You bastard. Isabella shrieked. I'll kill you. Listening to their curses fade into the distance, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. My assistant looked at me, puzzled. He saw the dozens of missed calls from Chloe on my phone and decided to answer one. The Crofts found your boss, didn't they? Chloe's voice came through the phone. Send me his police statement. I have other evidence. Enough to make sure they never see the light of day again. My assistant glanced at me, and I nodded. He let out a breath of relief. He didn't understand why the late Mr. Vance's family and wife all insisted that his new boss was the same man. It was all very strange. When I saw the sentencing report for the Crofts, I smiled. 2 15-year sentences and 1 life in prison. The thought of them rotting in a cell for the rest of their lives was deeply satisfying. But Chloe didn't give up. Now certain of my identity, she began a new campaign of relentless pursuit. Every day, a bouquet of flawless, handmade velvet roses would arrive at my office, a concession to my allergies. Each one came with a handwritten note. Ethan, I was wrong. Please, just give me one more chance. Coffee and pastries would be waiting for me at the end of the day. After a week of this, even the receptionists who had been throwing the gifts away started to hesitate. No matter where I went, Chloe would somehow arrange a social gathering just so she could accidentally run into me. Her friends started to tease her. You were never this devoted to Julian, and that mute, he was the one who followed you around. I've never seen you chase a man this hard before. Chloe just gave a bitter smile and downed another glass of wine. Across the room, I was schmoozing with the old sharks of the New York business world. One of them raised his glass with a sly grin. I'm well aware of the Vance family's influence, a true powerhouse. I was wondering if your family had considered any strategic marriage alliances. The noisy room fell silent. Chloe's hand tightened around her glass. No, I said with a charming smile. To be honest, I have more admirers than I know what to do with. A strategic alliance isn't really my style. The crowd laughed, but for Chloe, the sound was like a knife in her heart. Her friend nudged her. Looks like you've got your work cut out for you. Seriously, a powerful CEO he may be, but you're a widow with a reputation for being difficult and picky. He might not be interested. With every word, the color drained from Chloe's face. A sense of panic seized her. The thought of me with another woman was suffocating. So, when the event was over, Chloe cornered me, ignoring the curious stares of the onlookers. Ethan, did you say that just to hurt me? I know how much you used to love me. Please, just give me a chance to make it right. Finally, she broke down completely, sobbing at my feet. I'll do anything if you'll just forgive me. Ethan, please don't ignore me. I leaned down and a cruel idea took root in my mind. Fine, then you can be my devoted follower, Ms. CEO. After all, you should know exactly what I like. And so began a strange new chapter in New York's high society. Whenever I had a business meeting, Chloe would be there, drinking every glass of liquor that was pushed on me, even if it meant ending up in the hospital. When I went to parties, she would tag along. Once, when I lost a game of dares, she volunteered to take my punishment, which was to bark like a dog. The other guests were horrified, but I just laughed and gave her an approving nod. At one dinner, I casually mentioned that I preferred a softer look and smilingly suggested she get plastic surgery. She agreed without hesitation. Her behavior was bizarre and shocking to most, but to her oldest friends it was eerily familiar. Chloe, one of them said, I seem to remember your mute admirer doing all these same things for you. How the tables have turned. The friend expected Chloe to get angry, but instead, she just nodded sadly. How, she asked, do you get someone you've destroyed to love you again? Her friends were floored. They had known her for 20 years and had never seen her like this. Chloe, come on, there are plenty of other men out there. Shut up, Chloe snapped. He's different. It was all my fault. No one dared to argue further. They could only watch as Chloe continued her clumsy, desperate attempts to win my affection. After her latest hospital stay, she showed up with a new face. The sharp, cold beauty was gone, replaced by a softer, gentler look, though the smile was stiff and unnatural. She started trying to cook for me, even going so far as to show up at my family home and beg my brother Leo for lessons. Mr. Vance, please, you have to teach me, she pleaded. I need to apologize to Ethan. He cooked for me for years, and I want to finally learn what he likes. The first time Leo saw her, he was furious. This was the woman who had tormented his brother. But she kept coming back, and when he heard about all the humiliating things she was doing for me, he started to feel a strange sense of pity. He knew she had been pampered her whole life. Even simple cooking was a challenge for her. But she never complained, not even when she burned her hands. Her first attempts at cooking were terrible, but she forced herself to eat every bite. She learned I preferred vegetarian food and started planning balanced meals, even once badly cutting her finger and quietly tending to it herself. Listening to Leo's reports on Chloe's activities, I felt a strange mix of scorn and surprise. I was humiliating her for revenge, but I had no intention of ever taking her back. So, the next day, I accepted a date with another woman and made sure to come home very late. Chloe was still waiting for me in the dining room. I had deliberately stood her up for dinner, but when she saw me, she forced a smile. "Ethan, you're back. Did you get held up at work?" Her voice trailed off as she noticed the love bite on my neck and the cut on my lip. I frowned, my expression one of pure boredom. "It's nothing, and you don't need to come here anymore. I'm tired of this game. We're done." "Ethan, please don't send me away," she begged. "I want to cook for you. Look, I made all your favorites." "Ethan, please, just stay away from other women." I laughed and shook my head. "And who are you to ask me that? My wife, or my pathetic admirer?" Chloe bit her lip, silent. She suddenly remembered all the times she had come home with marks on her own neck, and how I had never seemed to care. Her lips trembled as she finally asked the question she had been too afraid to voice. "Ethan, all those years, did you really stay with me for 9 years because you loved me?" I burst out laughing, my voice dripping with mockery. "You really thought I was madly in love with you? The truth is, I only stayed with you to save my brother. I have no interest in being anyone's substitute. It's easy enough to fake love when you feel nothing at all." In that single moment, every advantage Chloe thought she had was obliterated. Her amber eyes filled with disbelief, and yet it made a horrible kind of sense. If I had never truly loved her, of course I could leave without a second thought, while she, who had fallen for me, was left to suffer. Chloe left my house in a daze, but she wasn't ready to give up. The memory of our 9 years together, which she now saw as happy, flashed through her mind, and she coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Find out who that woman with Ethan was today," she ordered her assistant. "Bring her to me." Her assistant sighed and nodded. Chloe, whose head was already pounding, was shown a photo of me kissing a woman named Sarah, and she saw red. "I'm telling you to stay away from Ethan Vance. He's taken," Chloe warned. Sarah, who had been confused, now laughed. "He hasn't claimed you, has he, Miss Sterling? As I see it, we're just competitors. And I'm much younger than you. Besides, he certainly didn't reject me last night." Chloe's face was flushed with anger. "What will it take for you to leave him alone? 10 million? Name your price." Sarah just smiled, a nasty, predatory smile. "You're rich, Miss Sterling, but so is my family. And I very much look forward to becoming Mrs. Vance." At her last word, Chloe broke free from her security and lunged at Sarah. The two women started fighting, and it took both of their security teams to pull them apart. Amelia, who had just returned from a month-long business trip abroad, was shocked to hear the news. Her cousin, Sarah, was pursuing me and had gotten into a physical fight with Chloe. She said nothing, but a wave of irritation washed over her. After much deliberation, she finally called me. "Ethan, about my cousin. She was just a decoy to get Chloe off my back," I said, cutting her off. "I assume you're calling because Chloe hit her? I'll cover all her medical bills and pay for her trouble. Don't worry." "No, that's not it," Amelia said, her voice quiet. "I was wondering why you didn't ask me for help. Ethan, can you give me a chance? A chance to be with you." I drew in a sharp breath. Amelia was confessing her feelings for me. She had been a good friend, but that's all she was to me. "I'm sorry, Amelia. I'm going to pretend you didn't say that. We're friends. Please tell your cousin the compensation is on its way." I hung up without another word. Amelia lowered her head, a feeling of helplessness washing over her. She knew I was cold and distant, but somewhere along the way, she had fallen for me anyway. The next day, I called a meeting with the Vanguard Group's board of directors and proposed a hostile takeover of Sterling Enterprises. They saw I had a solid plan and backed me completely. I immediately began to dismantle all of our joint ventures and started aggressively poaching their clients. At first, Chloe didn't take it seriously. Then, she refused to believe it. "Ethan, why are you trying to destroy my company?" she demanded. "No reason," I said coldly. "I was by your side for 9 years. I know all of Sterling Enterprises' dirty little secrets. This is just business." She laughed at my cold tone, refusing to believe I could be so cruel. But then, over the next few days, Sterling Enterprises was hit by a series of scandals: inflated construction costs, falsified safety data, insider trading. Though Chloe fought to control the damage, her company's stock plummeted, losing billions in value. She was on her way to confront me when her car was run off the road. A disheveled, crazed-looking Julian Croft pulled her from the wreckage, a twisted smile on his face as he plunged a knife into her stomach. "Payback, Chloe," he cackled. "I heard Sterling Enterprises is about to go under, all because of that bastard Ethan. Oh, did I mention I escaped? It's all your fault. You handed me over to that monster. You love him so much, and he couldn't care less about you. It hurts, doesn't it? We're both getting what we deserve." Julian's scarred face looked demonic in the dim light. He laughed triumphantly and ran off. Chloe lay bleeding on the pavement until one of her own employees found her, unconscious in the parking garage. By the time she reached the hospital, she was knocking on death's door. When I heard about Chloe's accident, I immediately mobilized the Sterling Enterprises shareholders who were loyal to me. Within a week, we had completed the acquisition. Chloe was in a coma for 2 weeks. When she woke up, she had lost a leg and was confined to a wheelchair, her lungs so damaged she needed a ventilator to breathe. Her assistant couldn't bring himself to tell her that her company was gone, but she saw it on the news. Me, giving a press conference as the new head of the merged corporation. She never imagined I could be so heartless. And yet, a part of her understood. I wasn't the same person she had once bullied into silence. I had been reborn, and she could no longer keep up. Soon after, she lost her voice completely. The doctors said a blood clot from the attack was pressing on her vocal cords. Chloe finally understood what it was like to be mute. She had to type on a phone to communicate, just as I had for all those years. Only then did she begin to understand the frustration and hardship I had endured. In the month she was in the hospital, I never once came to see her. Her mansion was foreclosed on, her shares in the company seized. When she was finally discharged, she had no choice but to move into a tiny rental apartment she once would have considered beneath her. She was struggling to clean her new, tiny apartment when a news alert popped up on her phone. Her eyes filled with tears as she read the headline, "Vanguard CEO Ethan Vance steps down, moves abroad for new ventures. Dr. Amelia Hayes reportedly joins him." The article included a photo of the two of us, smiling, at the airport gate. A sharp pain shot through Chloe's chest. She finally had to admit it to herself. I was happy without her, and she had lost me forever. When her former assistant found her, her body was already cold. The autopsy revealed she had died of a massive stroke. Since Chloe had no other living relatives, he called me. "Mr. Vance," he said, "Miss Sterling has passed away. I was wondering about the funeral arrangements." I sighed. It was a sad end. I decided to arrange a proper burial for her. It seemed like the least I could do after our 9 years together. I knew that part of my life was over. Ethan Vance was a ghost of the past. With Chloe gone, I was finally free to live my own life, for myself.